This is a story about people who want the world run their way, the American way.
American preeminence is a fact.
People who believe American power is there to be used.
We're very unabashed about using American force.
Who are talking about a new world war.
They will say, "You make us very nervous." And our response should be good.
Sometimes they are really terrifying in the way they think, the way they would like to shape the world.
It's like a gang, it's like mafia. They'll take on everyone.
It's a story of people who stick together.
It's real, fundamental love and power.
Okay, guys.
Though to outsiders, they can be a mystery.
How is it that these people, gained such influence so quickly?
They call themselves neoconservatives, right-wing thinkers whose dreams of a new American century have become George Bush's foreign policy.
The President of the United States, on issue after issue, has reflected the thinking of neoconservatives.
What's new about the neocons' thinking? They believe America's military might should promote America's ideals.
American power should be used not just in the defense of American interests, but for the promotion of American principles.
Throughout the war, we were with the neocons in Washington, going behind the scenes.
I'm going to get a monkey to go with it.
Finding out what makes them tick.
I'm a student of Machiavelli. I wrote a book on Machiavelli. And I know the struggle against evil is going to go on forever.
And what the neocons have in store for us now.
We're going to have to bring down a series of regimes who are the sponsors of a network of various terrorist organizations.
Syria,
Saudi Arabia,
Iran,
North Korea,
and then there's Libya.
Tonight, will America's superhawks drag us into more wars against their enemies?
Disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger. On my orders...
The neocons may have helped inspire the war, but they also inspire suspicion in Washington.
They're hawks, and they've had those plans set out for quite a while, I believe.
To me, it seems like there's another agenda that we're not really privy to with all of this, and that is what concerns me most.
Washington's most neocon paper churns out the story. The war's begun. And so perhaps is the neoconservative way of running the world. You must see this as an important moment for you, that there's something at stake for you neoconservatives here.
Sure. There's a lot at stake. Our ideas are being put to the test. We are aware of the fact that we are influencing the lives of millions of people with our ideas. Our ideas are being tested.
Time for a walk on the wild side with ultra-neoconservative Michael Ledeen.
Do you have a mirror? Can I fix my...
Second day of the war, and Michael Ledeen's about to go on TV, talking about more regimes to topple.
This is a conflict between freedom and tyranny. We're fighting tyrants. I believe that if the tyrants are removed, that there'll be a great deal more peace and chances for peace in the Middle East.
And the tyrants, if you can name names.
Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Saudi Arabia are the big four, and then there's Libya. There's a North Korean problem, too, that we'll have to deal with, although that's not directly related to the Middle East, except insofar as North Korea's helped them.
In Washington's National Press Center, journalist Jim Loeb's become a neocon anorak, compiling files on them since the 70s, when he realized how influential they could become. Michael Ledeen, a particular source of fascination.
He's supposed to brief the White House as well, or?
Yeah, people were very surprised to see that of all the people who Karl Rove, his closest advisor, talks to very few people who are knowledgeable in foreign affairs. Very few, like a handful. But one of them is Michael Ledeen. And, that would be cause for sleepless nights for many people, I would think. He is a provocateur, and he's written more than once that the thing he really dislikes about foreign policy establishment is that they prefer stability as opposed to revolution or radical change.
The neocon future is also being plotted 5 floors below the AEI in the offices of the Weekly Standard and its editor William Crystal. Bill Crystal was Chief of Staff to the Vice President in George Bush Sr.'s White House. He was once called Dan Quayle's brain, but he believes George Bush Sr. wimped out by not toppling Saddam in the '91 Gulf War. Now he's chair of perhaps the most hardcore neocon think tank, the revealingly titled Project for the New American Century. Its mission, to shape a new century favourable to American principles and interests.
Project for the New American Century involves Richard Pearl, Dick Cheney, Elliot Abrams, Donald Rumsfeld, Paul Wolfowitz. These are only 5 of the name. Jeb Bush. All these people, everybody knows about the Project for the New American Century. You're all going to go home and check it on the web, right? What it does is outline a doctrine for United States imperialism. Not even neo-imperialism, bona fide old-school imperialism.
In 1998, the Project for the New American Century wrote to President Clinton, urging removing Saddam's regime from power. 18 people signed, half now in the administration, including Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld and his influential deputy, Paul Wolfowitz. Preemptive action, regime change, after 9/11, those neocon policies were just what George Bush was looking for.
George Bush's current foreign policy is basically a neoconservative foreign policy, in the sense that he believes that American power is crucial to the promotion of liberty and democracy around the world.
On 17th Street, the protesters are zeroing in on the neocons' HQ. Inside, the American Enterprise Institute's latest black coffee briefing. Michael Ledeen, unapologetic about America's shock and awe tactics.
All the great scholars who have studied American character have come to the conclusion that we are a warlike people and that we love war.
That's one point you forgot to talk about.
My personal feeling was doing, an incredibly good deed by pushing this war because, people got their freedom out of it.
Joshua Moravchik has his sights on another regime in the axis of evil. North Korea. It's reported to have a weapons-grade nuclear program. He says diplomacy is unlikely to work.
So how far would you go?
Well, that might include having to try to destroy it by military strikes.
If we do not stop them now, they're going to continue with this war all over the world.
No one sort of paid attention until all of a sudden we wake up in 2001, really. We wake up and they're running the government. They own the Defense Department. I mean, that's what's so terrifying.
You thought that the war was going to spread all over the Middle East. You thought there'd be massive bloodshed. It hasn't happened, has it? Really?
Not yet. It's only been 3 weeks. My God. Look, that's what we have to worry about. I mean, really, we have to... It's been 3 weeks, and we're not in Syria yet, but already in the American media, you're saying, oh, Syria bad. Look out for Syria. It's like they're preparing us.
A few blocks away, the pro-war patriots hold their own rally. The turnout just 1,000 to 2. The passion just as intense.
How did you feel when the statue came down?
Moved. It was a moving moment, really. Great to see.
Looks like you won. What next?
Well, I think we need to help get Iraq on its feet, help establish a decent government there, and then really work to remove other dictators with weapons of mass destruction and deal with the threat of terrorism around the world. Hopefully not with military action, hopefully through diplomatic pressure, but this is the end of the beginning of this broader war. It's not the end of the end.
During the campaign, candidate Bush had criticized the Clinton-Gore administration for being too interventionist.
If we don't stop extending our troops all around the world in nation-building missions, then we're going to have a serious problem coming down the road, and I'm going to prevent that.
Tonight, O'Neill, who is known for speaking his mind, talks for the first time about his 2 years inside the Bush administration. His story is the centerpiece of a new book being published this week about the way the Bush White House is run. Entitled The Price of Loyalty, the book, by a former Wall Street Journal reporter, draws on interviews with high-level officials who gave the author their personal accounts of meetings with the president, their notes and documents. But the main source of the book was Paul O'Neill. He says that going after Saddam Hussein was topic A 10 days after the inauguration, 8 months before September 11th.
From the very first instance, it was about Iraq. It was about what we can do to change this regime.
Now, everybody else thought that grew out of 9/11.
No.
But this book says it was day one of this administration.
Day one, these things were laid and sealed.
As Treasury Secretary, O'Neill was a permanent member of the National Security Council. It's all about finding a way to do it. That was the tone of it. The president saying, go find me a way to do this.
A radical plan for American military domination first surfaced during the administration of George H.W. Bush. In 1992, Paul Wolfowitz, working in the Department of Defense, was asked to write the first draft of a new national security strategy, a document entitled the Defense Planning Guidance. The most controversial elements of what would later come to be known as the Wolfowitz Doctrine were that the United States should dramatically increase defense spending, that it should be willing to take preemptive military action, and that it should be willing to use military force unilaterally, with or without allies. This new reliance on military force was necessary, according to Wolfowitz, to prevent the emergence of any future or potential rivals to American power, and to secure access to vital resources, especially Persian Gulf oil. In 2000, they would craft yet another proposed national security strategy, this one published by a right-wing think tank calling itself the Project for the New American Century. At its core, the document revived the Wolfowitz Doctrine. It called on the United States to increase the military budget by up to $100 billion, to deny other nations the use of outer space, and to adopt a more aggressive and unilateral foreign policy that would allow the United States to act offensively and preemptively in the world. The elimination of states like Iraq figured prominently in this grand vision.
Much of what these men wanted is coming true. They urged that the U.S. abandon the anti-ballistic missile treaty. It has. They wanted establishment of more permanent U.S. military bases abroad. They urged regime change as a goal of foreign wars, not just in Iraq. They wanted the U.S. as a global constabulary, their word, unburdened by the UN or world opinion, preventing any challenge to U.S. dominance. But, they wrote, a year before September 11th, such aspirations are unlikely to be realized without a catastrophic and catalyzing event, like a new Pearl Harbor.
Is this kind of ideology that has grown up in the wake of the Cold War, propounded quite openly by what we are calling neoconservatives in America.
So this is not just a Republican takeover. This is a very specific wing of the Republican Party. It's neoconservative, it's unilateralist, it doesn't believe in the rule of law, it doesn't believe you have to tell the public the truth.
And they happen to be an extremely arrogant, dangerous group of reactionary statists. They're not conservatives.
They have a political agenda with regards to foreign policy that they had been working on for years and years, and writing about this and saying this is the post-Cold War vision. This is our post-Cold War vision for American power.
Ever since the Cold War ended, there were people who were fuming on the right, thinking, this is the golden opportunity now that Russia's out of the way for America to take over the world. We're not doing anything about it. Those damn liberals, those soft heads, are keeping us from doing what is our godly mission.